Hey, what's going on, friends? Listen, welcome to part 2 of how to show up as a leader. Now, listen, if you haven't already watched part 1, go back and watch that one first and then come back to part 2. We have one more part of this series that we're going to be releasing. We'll let you know. As a matter of fact, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and also click the notification bell so you'll know when we're releasing new videos. I'm so excited to get these videos to you. Without further ado, here is part 2 of how are you showing up as a leader. Leonard J. Marcus, in this book called You're It. You're It. It's a great book, recommended to me by a great friend of mine, a great leader. And the book is called You're It, Crisis, Change, and How to Lead When It Matters Most. So we're talking about how you're showing up. And I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, but I think I'm still on the same track. But in this book, You're It, this quote that I love, and I actually put it in my book: the failure of imagination ultimately leads to the failure of leaders. The failure of imagination ultimately leads to the failure of leaders. People are following you because you have the audacity and the unmitigated gall to dream about something that they didn't believe was possible, or maybe they didn't even know could exist. And no matter your religious background, I'm a man of faith, I'm a believer in Christ, and I have no problem saying this, that you've been placed in this earth. You've been given this leadership opportunity to show up on your job, in your family, in your business, as an entrepreneur, as a teacher, as an educator, as a medical professional. Whatever it is, you've been placed on this earth to get people to see something that they've never seen before. As a matter of fact, if you think about the people that you admire, the people that you read their books and you watch their movies and you're inspired, or you listen to their talks, why are you inspired? Because they're tapping into something, a higher self, a higher potential you. They're showing you, they're getting you to imagine something that you didn't believe was possible. As a matter of fact, this morning on my way to the studio here, I was on the call with one of my coaches, and in 5 minutes, he said something to me that just literally expanded my imagination. I didn't even think about it. And the crazy thing was, I was saying, why didn't I think about that? Because he was the leader. He showed up in my life in a way to get me to believe. He made a decision, and even though what he said challenged me, it also hit something on the inside of me that got me to think about something that I wasn't thinking about. I'm going back to the question again, my friend. How are you showing up as a leader? Are you showing up fearful? Are you showing up with a huge vision, but you're too scared to share it with others because it's just outlandish, it's crazy? But guess what? In May 1961, I believe it was, this guy by the name of President JFK, John F. Kennedy, he gets before Congress and stands before Congress, I believe it was May 25th, I could be wrong, 1961, and he says, "It should be America's goal by the end of the decade to launch a man to space, to the moon, and to bring him back to Earth safely," something like that. But basically he's saying, we're going to send a man to the moon. A big vision. He showed up with this crazy, never has been done before vision. How are you showing up? I'm going to keep asking you that through the course of this teaching. How are you showing up as a leader? How are you showing up as a human being? When you know God has placed a huge God-sized vision, that's what I call it, a God-sized vision that literally scares the you-know-what out of you. Insert word here, right? How do you show up to that? Are you showing up with more courage? Or is there a gap between who you're supposed to be and how you show up? Because in that is an impact, negative impact often, on your integrity. Again, integrity is not always I don't steal. Integrity is not always, I don't cheat on my taxes, which none of those things we should be doing. Integrity is not just, I don't cheat on my wife. I don't beat my kids. Integrity is, I make the right decisions to move forward. I make the right decisions to overcome any barrier in my life that hinders me from being everything that I was set on earth and called to do. That's integrity. Why? Because people need you to be that. People are waiting for you to show up as that person that you're called to be. And when we choose to not show up with that brave sense of, I can do this, and when we don't work on ourselves, when we don't build ourselves, when we don't do anything to advance our capacity, whether it's going to conferences, reading books, or getting coached, when we just say, you know what, I'll just stay where I am. My friend, that is an integrity issue. We wonder why we can't make the things happen that we're called to make happen. I want you to think about the people that you admire and think about how they showed up. How did they present themselves to others? And let me say this. This is just because I just need to say this. Maybe you've had that gap in your life. Maybe you've lived to where what I'm saying to you is convicting. And I know this is probably one of the most convicting talks that I've ever given. And I don't want you to be offended, but I do want you to be disturbed enough to let this message and this talk resonate with you. And maybe you've been that one, my friend, to where you've noticed that gap. Or as I'm talking, you're noticing, hey, Barry, I am showing up with the gap. I am showing up. The person that I know I am to be and the person that I am now, there's a gap. And I need to close that gap. And I need to walk in greater integrity. I don't want you to beat yourself up. I just want you to recognize it and admit that. Admitting is the first step, right? So you've admitted that. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? This is the integrity, is that, hey, I've made a mistake. I failed. I didn't show up as the leader. I did not show up as the human being. I did not show up as the person. I did not show up as the husband or the spouse or the wife or the child or the son, the daughter, whatever the case. I didn't show up as the worker that I am to be. And therefore, people are hindered because I'm not operating at my best. I have an integrity gap. But the integrity improvement is, here's what I'm going to do now. And that's what I want to ask you. What are you going to do now?